The bases dropped on a new week of SDH, June 24th. It's a busy overreaction Monday. We've got MLS back in action from the weekend. We've got the U.S. men's national team with a big win over Trinidad and Tobago. We've got all kinds of stuff from the Women's World Cup to get into. And, oh, yeah, by the way, the U.S. women's national team plays today, kickoff around 11:30 in the round of 16 against Spain. And I think some people have already written this off as a win, and no. It should be, but this is the thing, and this is where the discussion around the U.S. in this tournament has been a little frustrating. Should this be a win? Yes. The U.S. is the better team. Is it one that you write down right now in Sharpie that they're going through? No, it's not. Spain is a very good team that took the U.S. to the limit in January in Spain in a friendly. It was a 1-0 win for the United States. Spain, where I think they have problems, is they don't have that star up top. They're not getting the goals that their play deserves. But this is going to be a match where both teams will want to control possession. Spain has controlled possession in every game in this tournament by a large margin. That's helped them defensively because they've had the ball and it's been harder for opponents to create chances. I want to see what Jill Ellis does in this match tactically, because I don't know if they will necessarily have the possession advantage in this one. I think they can use that to their advantage with their press and let Spain have a good bit of the ball and press and try to create those turnovers. We'll see if that's where they go. Also, we'll be looking at the lineup because, by all accounts, Julie Ertz and Alex Morgan will be back in the lineup today. But there was a closed-door training session over the weekend, which has not been the norm for the U.S. It was mentioned on one of the updates on Fox. It might have been Grant Wall who made that update. It hasn't been the normal modus operandi here from Jill Ellis. So is there something more going on, or is there a wrinkle up her sleeve that she's going to throw a different lineup out here, a different formation? Don't really know. We should get that lineup around 10:30, and we'll break it down as soon as we get that. Jessica Charman from the Unrelegated podcast from the Queens of the South, from our World Cup dates, will be joining us at 10 o'clock to go through more of the Women's World Cup and start to look ahead to that U.S. match. But, John, let's dig into the action from the weekend in Major League Soccer. It went about as we expected when we went through it last week. We'll just go chronologically. LA Galaxy 2-0 over Cincinnati. It's 2 early first-half goals. There really wasn't much in the match after the 15th minute. Sebastian Lletget, who was ruled out of the Gold Cup due to injury, was able to return to start. That grabbed some attention. Zlatan did not get on the score sheet, and Lletget made a comment afterwards about Zlatan maybe not needing to be so emotional after matches. There were a couple different things. I mean, I checked in on this match a few times. I wasn't studying it. And late in the match, I mean, Zlatan was just walking around from what I saw. Now, again, I didn't watch the whole thing, but he didn't really seem all that engaged or interested. And, of course, you can pull some clips and show, like, a pass that was a couple feet away from Zlatan, and he just stood and watched it and let it roll. Things like that, but Lletget making a comment after the match that was not completely glowing of Zlatan, that might be the first time that we've heard that from a Galaxy player or staff member.
Yeah, I think it is, and you know, it is the shine and the sheen off the front of the store window for the LA Galaxy finally being shown, being not quite the store that we thought it was. And I watched. I will raise my hand and say that this was my leadoff match in watching all of the action over the weekend from MLS, and that was the one that watched a lot of, and in all honesty, Zlatan did not seem to be all that teamly, to create a word, all that engaged. Didn't seem to be a fan of everything going on around him, since he wasn't the centerpiece of everything going on around him. If you want to use the word lollygag, you can use the word lollygag, but didn't seem to be a fan of being out there for LAG against Cincinnati. No.
I'm going to disagree with that, because I don't think it's about not wanting to be on the field for LA Galaxy. I think it's just all about Zlatan. It's all about, if he's getting goals, he'll be wherever, whenever, he doesn't care.
No doubt.
And Leggett kind of hinted at that, about, he wants to get his goals, and yeah, that's fine. But you can't be disengaged when you're not getting those goals. I mean, that's
right.
the bigger issue here. I don't think it's an LA Galaxy thing. I think it's just that's who Zlatan is at this stage. And if he's not scoring, is he really helping you? And that's going to be a question that the Galaxy are going to have to answer as the year goes on. The match I was watching more of outside of the U.S. men's national team match, and can we stop scheduling MLS games at the same time that the national team's playing? Like,
for real.
I know there's a crowded schedule. I know there's a limited number of dates, but it's a bad look. This was not a match that the United States Soccer Federation scheduled. It's a CONCACAF match, but you knew the timing. You knew when this was going on. Could the MLS matches have been late in the afternoon for the most part? Could they have been on Sunday? I don't know. Dallas 3-0 over Toronto, and Toronto right now has been a mess. They haven't won in their last 8 matches. This one could have been a whole lot worse. Quentin Westberg actually had a really nice match in goal for Toronto. 2 goals from Dominique Baggio on either side of halftime, a goal from Bresson on a set piece. Toronto, when they went from 5 in the back, 3 center backs and the wing back sitting pretty deep, it played a lot like a 5 in the back. When they went from that to 4 in the back to start the second half, the wheels fell off. It was very bad. Chris Mavinga out due to injury with a hamstring. Alro out with a hamstring. Alex Bono reportedly took a knock in training. He didn't make the trip to Dallas. They're missing 3 Canadian national team players, 2 U.S. national team players, and they've got to turn it around and play on Wednesday against Atlanta United. It's not looking good at the moment for Toronto. Their backs are starting to get up against the wall again.
Yeah, and we had anticipated Dallas getting the Duke in this one because of the absences and just the run of play recently for Toronto FC, but I did not anticipate them. You look at the score sheet, 3 goals in 17 minutes, but 1 before the half and then 2 in 7 minutes in the second half with Bresson and Badji's brace. I didn't anticipate it being 3-0. I would have thought Toronto would have gotten something on the board, but yeah, you kind of sit there and you put your hands up in the air about Toronto right now. It's just not a very good club.
No, it's not a good club. Injuries are a problem. National team absences are a problem. The depth is now a question. It's not good at the moment, and I don't see it getting better before the window opens on July 9th. What are they going to do when that window opens? That's one of the questions of the summer in Major League Soccer. Chicago 1-1 with Real Salt Lake. Alexander Katai gets an early goal. It's canceled out 33rd minute from Albert Rusnak. The Fire had a bunch of second-half chances, but they couldn't find a winner. Nick Raimondo made a big save late. Chicago just continues to be a mystery at times, but this is a good point for Real Salt Lake. I think Mike Petke's crew is going to be happy with it.
No doubt. And when I look at Chicago, and when I think something's going to happen, 9 times out of 10 it doesn't. You're thinking that, okay, you're turning a corner. There's going to be some consistency. You're going to get a solid win at home, and then you put this one up there. And after Katai scores in the 5th minute, you're thinking, all right, you're heading down the right path, and then just it ends up being a PK from Rusnak, and you're going away with shared points. But yeah, to your point, I think that if you're RSL, if you're Mike Petke, you got out of Bridgeview with a point, and you should be really cool with it. I admit that I kind of flipped to this match as well, but after looking at it for a few minutes, I would gradually end up flipping away from this match as well because of after what happened in the first 33. You didn't get that in the second 57.
Colorado jumped out to a 2-0 lead after the first 20 minutes in Vancouver, but the Whitecaps came back. They got an equalizer in the 80th through Jordi Reyna. 2-2, they share the points. Again, I think Colorado will be unhappy that they gave up the lead, but happy overall with the point. And Vancouver just keeps Vancouvering along, just kind of treading water. It feels
Yeah,
like.
there you go. And can we turn that into an actual word now?
No. It's not that good.
Vancouvering, I think that it fits what they've been doing. But, they had a chance to make it 3, and meaning Colorado. And I still think that I know that the Rapids will be disappointed in giving up 2 points, but I still think that I don't know why they haven't given Connor Casey the gig for the remainder of the year and just gone ahead and said it. Because of what Colorado has been able to do with him there. And you see a different energy. And it's interesting to see how a coaching change works sometimes. And this interim has really done things. And, we kind of joke about the Connor Casey effect with hashtags and such. But you're seeing a different Colorado side with Casey than you did light years away from what Anthony Hudson did. And, at times, if you pick out the opponent, Colorado, it's worth checking in on. It's not worth spending probably a whole 90 minutes on, but I admit that I checked on this match when it was up and running just to see the curiosity factors there now when it comes to Connor Casey and what are the Rapids going to do now? Are they going to continue with the momentum that he's given them? And, goals from Shinyashiki and Rubio, and they're just still doing their thing.
Yeah, Connor Casey deserves the spot at this point. I mean, there's just no reason to go out and rush and do a hire. Just, keep him as an interim, but say he's going to finish the season and see what you can get. There's no reason to go do anything differently. I mean, he's made it simple. Bobby Warshaw had a good piece over at MLSsoccer.com kind of digging into a little bit of the details. I think more than anything, Connor Casey's just made things simple and played to the team's strengths. And that's where you need to start when you come into this type of situation. You're not going to have the ability to have a gigantic tactical overhaul in midstream. You have to assess what you have on your roster, what will work the best for them, and go out and do it. And keep life simple and keep the players motivated. And I think Connor Casey, as a former player who's been in this type of situation before, has just leaned on his strengths and leaned on the roster strengths. And you're seeing results now. So I would be shocked if Colorado went in a different direction at this point. Finish the year out, see where you're at, and maybe Connor Casey gets the job full time. Portland, in the late night game on Saturday, demolished Houston 4-0. Houston's missing a ton of pieces right now to the Gold Cup. No real surprise here. Brian Fernandez scored his 8th goal in all competitions in 6 matches since joining the Timbers. Incredible signing for them. It's made everybody around him better as well, and the Timbers just keep rolling on.
And I admit that this was the one that I watched late night. And
you watched every match?
Bits and pieces.
Okay.
But I watched bits and pieces of most, but this one I watched in full. And, well, considering it started at 11 o'clock Eastern time, it was easy to sit there and just plug into this one when all the others had kind of just gone to finality. But I think that the one takeaway for me from looking at Portland is when you have Fernandez up top and you've slid a Bobasi out wide, I think that you've seen a bit of a jump start with a Bobasi's game. And Brian Fernandez, for me, is turning into must-see TV because of how electric he is and what he brings to the table for Portland. He's a fun watch. And watching friend, I guess we can call him friend of the show, can't we, Jake Zivin?
Yes.
and watching Jake and the guys call that match. Jake is coming out of his seat practically every time Fernandez has possession of the ball, and rightfully so. And it's a fun watch, and it's a fun listen to watch them en route kind of see how Brian Fernandez has completely and totally integrated himself into Portland and everything that they're doing on the pitch right now for the Timbers. But yeah, this was not pretty, and it could have been worse. And Portland was just coming at Houston in waves and waves and waves, and it got out of control, but it could have been far more out of control. And watching Brian Fernandez is an absolute joy.
We'll see who Houston is when they get everybody back. They just don't have the depth to compete this time of year in a Gold Cup year with so many players away. They just don't have the depth to compete. So we will see if they can tread water until then. A team that is not treading water very well is the Columbus Crew. They lose 1-0 to Sporting Kansas City. It's a goal from Gerso. The Crew, it also got worse. They had an injury to David Accam in the first half, about the 15th minute. Hamstring, pulled him out. Harrison Offal, red card in the second half. Things are very, very bad in Ohio right now for Columbus.
Yeah, I had this one on while everything else was going on yesterday, and it just wasn't pretty. It wasn't an exciting watch. The one goal, I know that Columbus was sitting there saying that players were offside and all that kind of stuff, but to allow that to happen on a set piece like that, and just a rapid fire header that gets past John Kempen, it's just Columbus isn't good viewing right now. They're not a good team. It's not good viewing. They're kind of coming off the rails a little bit on the pitch when it comes to how they're acting and reacting. Patrick Mullins yesterday was getting in folks' faces and things like that, and you can understand it with what's going on. But Columbus just is not a good team right now, and Kansas City is getting healthier, and this is, one of those games when you go on the road, if you're Kansas City, you take care of business because the team that you're playing is just not very good. You get out of there with 3 points, and that was expected.
I mean, here's the issue for Columbus. They weren't very good before Federico Higuain was injured. They weren't very good before Will Trapp, Zach Steffen, Jossie Zardes went to the U.S. men's national team, and Steffen's not coming back. That's the spine of the team outside of the center backs. That's your two central midfielders, one defensive, one attacking, and your striker and your goalkeeper. They weren't very good when they were there. Now, they were missing Harrison Offal at that time. You get him back, everybody else leaves. It's a mess. What Caleb Porter wants to do with this team is very different than what Greg Berhalter did. And I think early on, without the ability to make a bunch of changes in the first transfer window of the season, I think he tried to find something in between that didn't work. It just didn't work at all. And now you're at a point where, all right, it's time to go complete rebuild. What do they do in this upcoming transfer window? Are they going to be out trying to spend, or are they going to be trying to shed players and money? And I'll be curious to see what approach they do, or if it's somewhere in between. They've got to start the true, complete rebuild now. And that's where Columbus is. I mean, it feels like it's been a piecemeal approach that hasn't gotten you anywhere so far. And now you've had an injury to Higuain, the sale of Steffen. It's time to just start fresh. And we'll see what Caleb Porter and Tim Bezpachenko in that front office decides to do when the transfer window opens up. They have some assets that I think teams would be interested in. I think Will Trapp has attracted attention overseas. Does that continue? You just signed Jossie Zardes to a new deal. I'd assume you're going to keep with that, but most everything else I would think would be up for grabs. And there's some quality players in this group that other MLS teams could use as they make playoff pushes, and Columbus could use the assets. And we'll see where they go with it. I'm intrigued. As much as I'm intrigued to see what Toronto does spending-wise, I want to see what Columbus does in general in this window, because we could start to get an idea of what they will be down the road by the end of the window. And Daniel Price is yelling at me because I said, "What's wrong?" He said, "What's wrong with watching all the matches?" My head was on a swivel. I was just laughing because John kept saying like it was a big deal that we watched this match, he watched this match, he watched this match. I'm like, you watched them all, so you got it. It was funny.
Yeah,
I laughed
as you should.
But I can't do that as much. I have to focus on a match.
You have to lock in.
I mean, I'll have multiple games on, but I lock in via the sound. So the early part of the night, I had the Toronto game on with sound as I was taking notes on Toronto ahead of Wednesday. I had the U.S. match on with no sound, and it was scoreless for a while in the first half, so I was just keeping an eye on it. And I had the Atlanta United 2 match on the phone on a smaller screen to keep up with that as it was scoreless going late. They ended up losing 1-0 on the road in Indy 11, and now they're 6 points out of a postseason spot. Go check the article over at The Athletic. Felipe Cardenas had a chance to sit down with Stephen Glass and get, I think, a little bit of a peek at the different purposes of Atlanta United 2. This year, I do think making the playoffs is a goal here. And, again, you're 6 points out. 10 teams make the playoffs in each conference in the USL. You want those games because that's an extra level of pressure that you want your players to experience. But that's not the only goal either. You do want to see now with this group who is going to be ready to make a jump. And is it this year? Is it this year that you start to see players make a jump? Last year, Miles Robinson's development with the twos prepared him for this season. It also prepared him for a postseason start as well that he did very well with against NYCFC. Who is going to be the Miles Robinson of this year's Atlanta United 2? Because that's the primary goal of that team. I'm not so sure yet. I don't know. I think USWNT has shown a lot. George Campbell's shown a lot, both on academy deals. Are they going to sign a pro deal? We'll have to wait and see on that. Wesley Dacus is another player on loan. Do you make that deal permanent? I think he's shown a lot of promise with this group. Florentine Pogba's gotten minutes with Atlanta United too. That's helped him when he stepped in with the first team. Will that continue to keep him fresh? Brandon Vasquez really kind of came out of nowhere because he wasn't getting a ton of minutes with Atlanta United 2 when he came back from injury. Got the goal against Red Bulls to probably helped him a little bit as he turned into Open Cup hero Brandon Vasquez.
Yes, that's all one word, by the way.
Yes. Who is going to be the Miles Robinson, though? We've seen little bits of how Atlanta United 2 is useful for Atlanta United. Who's going to be the Miles Robinson who parlays USL Championship minutes into a strong Major League Soccer season? And I'm not sure who that is just yet. Still got another half of the season, and we're going to find out because that's what's important with this group. They are 6 points out of a spot. You do have to start picking up 3 points. You do have to start picking up wins. The Indy 11 match is a prime example. It's a young team, a fairly inexperienced team that goes on the road and plays very well for 3/4 of the match. But the quarter that you don't, you give up a goal and you get nothing to show for it. Those are the results you have to start turning around. First turning those into draws, then turning draws into wins. That's how you make the postseason. That's how you prepare for the next level. That's what's been missing right now in this last bit of time for Atlanta United 2. Let's take a break. Come back. We'll get into more over your Overreaction Monday questions and comments. Tweet at us at Soccer Down Here. We'll look at the Women's World Cup. Jessica Charman of the Unrelegated podcast, our World Cup dates, Queens of the South, will join us at 10 o'clock. Segment. Yes, and we'll talk about the U.S. Women's National Team because they kick off just after 11:30 this morning. We should have a lineup about 10:30, and I'm really curious to see who's on it. We'll get into all that and more after a break.
Looking for future leaders we can trust and believe in? Look no further than the high school student athletes right here in Georgia. High school sports teach young people how to be effective leaders. It begins by making their grades and being on time for practice. It includes learning to listen, following directions, accepting responsibility, being a good role model. And it's about respect for officials, opponents, the rules, and each other. The result? It transcends sports. It gives us hope for the future. High school sports. There's so much more than just a game. This message presented by the Georgia High School Association and the Georgia Athletic Directors Association.
Today's show is presented by Appolinsky & Associates, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience, supporters of Atlanta United, the Faction, and Inter-Atlanta Youth Football Club. If you've been hurt in a wreck, contact Steve today at steve@aa-legal.com or call in 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Welcome back. Soccer Down here, June 24th. Overreaction Monday, and you've got lots of topics to overreact about. Have at it on Twitter at Soccer Down here. What are we overreacting about this morning?
Well, do you want an over or do you want an on par to start things off?
It can be any reaction we want.
Well, because Lewis Martin has one of each.
Okay.
So his overreaction goes to a point that we made in the first segment. MLS should not have played during Gold Cup or other major international competitions. Waters down the league. # no easy solution.
Yeah, it's the hashtag. That's the problem here. They shouldn't play when the United States is playing. That's a no-brainer to me. I don't know if this year, for example, they could not have taken June 1st through July 7th off. They just couldn't have done it, because then you would have had more Wednesday games and a more crowded schedule, and teams would have just played 3 times a week for the whole season. So this is the trade-off, and it's not a good trade-off. It's the calendar, and it's not the time of year for me that's the big issue. It's the amount of weeks in the season that is the biggest issue. They have to figure that out. That's why I didn't like moving MLS Cup up so much. I don't think that the trade-off of it being later and having more weeks in the season was as big of a problem. You wanted to avoid the international breaks in the playoffs. You could have done that in a format that would have worked better and given you more weeks of a regular season, especially if you were going to knockout games in the postseason as opposed to 2-leg series. I feel like this year you had absolutely no choice. It is something down the road you have to consider, and if that means starting the season earlier and playing pretty much all of your league games in Atlanta, in Miami, in Orlando, in Texas, in California for the first month of the season, you might just have to do that. That's just where you're at this point.
Then the on par reaction Monday, #. Lewis says, U.S. national teams, equal pay, equal facilities, equal accommodations, equal flights. What year is this?
Say it again? The U.S. men's national team?
National teams in general.
Okay. I mean, just like having, yes. I mean, we've all went round and round and round about the whole situation with equal pay, but however you feel about it, and I don't know why you'd be arguing against it, but is it more complicated than a 280-character missive? Yes, it is, because you have different types of revenue coming in, and you have different things going on. It is complicated. You also have the women on salary as opposed to the men not being on a salary. It's not an easy, just straight-up like-for-like discussion, but there are so many things that are in this, and that's the type of stuff that is. Per diems, pay for being in camp, flights, training, facilities offered. there's no valid excuse for those being different. Zero. There's no valid excuse for there being a difference in how much the players make per ticket sold. Stuff like that, there's no argument to justify there being a difference. None. At all. And that's something that U.S. Soccer cannot defend, and it should have never been that way. So hopefully, at a minimum, when the two sides sit down and they have agreed to do that after the World Cup, hopefully that is just an immediate, okay, this is how it is on one side, this is how it is on both sides, this part's even, let's move on to the important stuff that is more difficult to figure out.
Ricky Ricardo, and he has two to start things off this morning, and it lends us into a bit of our international segment. With the rumors linking Miggy to Real Madrid, I have two questions. First question, if that actually happened, is a remake of Goal and Goal 2 in order?
Yes, 100%. I mean, that was already a done deal anyway. So, yes, you have moved on now to Goal 2, where
Electric
Santiago moves to, no, not Electric Boogaloo, just Goal 2. I can't remember what the subtitle was. But Santiago moves on to Real Madrid. That's basically where you're at now.
Oh, The Dream Begins.
No, that was the first one.
Oh, it was?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So Goal, The Dream Begins. All right. So that was the first one. All right. So while I search for the...
Not that big a deal. Don't waste your time.
Come on.
It's really not. It's really not. It wasn't a good movie. The first one was really good. The second one, not so much.
All right. So then the second question, is there a sell-on clause in our transfer of Miggy to Newcastle? Hashtag goal, hashtag Goldos.
No way to know. I mean, they don't make these things public. So it's very possible that there is. I would assume that there's some element of it. It might not be a large one, but yeah, that's probably something that Atlanta United would have wanted to include in that deal. Absolutely, because I don't think anyone expected Miguel Almiron to be at Newcastle forever. It did feel like it could be a stepping stone, not a guaranteed stepping stone, but it could be, and we'll see if it is. Now, there's also complications on the Newcastle side of things now that have emerged this morning, and I believe we have a tweet or two about that.
Yes. Oh, Goal 2, living the dream, sir.
There you go. You wasted your time looking that up, just like watching
Not
the
really.
movie was a waste of the time.
Oh, come on.
No, it was. It was awful.
See.
The first one was a great movie. The second one was meh.
Yeah, second one was meh. You got me hooked into doing a book report on this show about watching Goal.
The first one was great. Fun movie.
I actually dug that one. All right, so Nick Alifi, host of Soccer Over There, kind of alerted the masses on our timeline a bit, as Newcastle says it is with disappointment that we announce manager Rafa Benitez will leave Newcastle upon the expiry of his contract on 30th June 2019.
Yeah, and the cure broke out all over Newcastle as everyone turned on disintegration and cried, because that's basically where it is to be a Newcastle fan these days. It's who knows? I mean, at this point, I don't even know if it's a shock or not a shock at this stage, because it felt like Rafa was going to leave so many different times and didn't. I'll be curious to see what the next step is for him. I don't think he agrees to leave unless there's a pretty good idea about what the next step is for him, and there are a few jobs out there that are enticing. See, that's bad. That's not the move that Rafa should be making unless he needs the money, and I don't know. If he does, more power to him. Go make that cash and then come back into a better job. He feels like he's not ready for that type of job yet. I don't think he needs to make that jump, but if, again, the money is probably really good, so if that's what you need at this point, go ahead and take it. But that would feel like even more of a punch to the gut if you're a Newcastle fan.
And Brandon says a little more, and there were a lot of folks who kind of jumped in on the whole Rafa leaving and heading away from Newcastle. And we had to look up words this morning about how people were responding in the timeline. So it was a Webster's.
Yes, there were insults of using words that are prone to Newcastle that I had never heard before. It was to that degree. After Disintegration ran out and the album ended, and then people went from being sad to angry, then they start throwing in Geordie slang at the Newcastle Twitter account, and it got out of hand. Yeah, you start calling people Radgies, you got problems.
Yeah. Carl Segi needs to help us out with that a little bit. Daniel Price started going down the MLS road with his thoughts for the Overreaction Monday. He says, what a wild ride last weekend. Valeri doing work. Yeah, so I started Brian Fernandez and not Valeri. Valeri did amazing things in fantasy. Zlatan literally floundering on the pitch. Yeah, but Valeri, if you captained him, it was twice as many points as Fernandez, though.
Well, if you captained Fernandez, you would have gotten those points.
I get 22 instead of 42, which people captained Valeri got.
Oh, well, I guess Valeri had an assist or two.
I guess I'd have to. I think he had an assist. That much I do know off the top of my head. But yeah, he ended up with 20 points more captaining than Fernandez did. Yeah, looked at the commissioner, wondered how he got so many points, and then I saw that he captained Valeri, and I'm like, oh, that did it. Let's see. Zlatan literally floundering on the pitch. Columbus failing to beat a weak Sporting Kansas City at home. Toronto, for whatever reason, struggling against West teams. Don't get me started on the World Cup. Hashtag Overreaction Monday.
Well, we'll get you started on the World Cup here shortly, and that'll be at 10 o'clock with Jessica Charman coming in. We'll probably talk Women's World Cup for the rest of the show at that stage, because we'll be getting closer to the U.S. women's national team match against Spain and everything associated with that. There's enough to talk about that we will hold it for then, because I do want people to chime in on their thoughts about the England-Cameroon match. The discussion around this match has went into so many different directions that I feel like it's kind of lost some of what actually happened on the field and what needs to happen going forward. And there's a lot of people in their feelings about all of it. And that's fine. That's not a bad place to start from, but man, it's been a little surprising to see so many different things about this that are maybe missing some of the points. We talked about it some on the World Cup date last night. If you had a chance to listen, we'll continue on that road. We'll also talk about Marta and what Marta had to say after Brazil was knocked out yesterday. Look, Marta's an unbelievable player, and I'm not going to lie. I think in the last couple of World Cups, I'd been a little disappointed with the theatrics and diving that was starting to become a bigger part of her game, and some of that anger coming through after not getting calls going her way. It was a little frustrating because I felt like she was a better player than that. Now, in this match, she tried to carry her team in this tournament, first of all, and she wasn't 100%. And in this final match, she left everything she had out on the field, and it could be her final World Cup match. And the comments she said afterwards, I think, point to maybe some of her frustration with the game in general and maybe a little bit with her team. And she kind of issues a challenge, I think, to the next generation. We'll get into all that in hour number 2, but the bat signal's been thrown up with the news that John Gallagher is going on loan to Aberdeen for the upcoming season. And whenever you talk about Scotland on this show, Jarrett Smith becomes available. So we're going to take a break. We're going to get Jarrett on the line, talk a little bit about Aberdeen and what Aberdeen can do for John Gallagher and his development. We'll be right back after this.
A ranger station.
I'd like to report a bear hug.
Okay.
I put out my campfire and Smokey Bear hugged me.
So you drowned the fire, you stirred it, drowned it again, and felt that it was cold?
Uh-huh.
Yep, he's just letting you know you did good.
Bear hug from Smokey Bear. Status update.
I'm gonna let you go now. There are many ways to start a fire, but one sure way to put it out. Learn how you can do your part at SmokeyBear.com.
Sponsored by the U.S. Forest Service, Ad Council, and your state forester.
As a business owner, you know that every year brings new challenges and opportunities. The success of your business demands expertise and focus. And Country Financial can help you keep that focus by helping ensure you have the right insurance protection in place to meet your goals. Jason Wright can help you create a customized insurance plan that has coverages designed just for your business. Give Jason a call at 678-568-6871 or reach him on Facebook at Jason Ray Agency. Coverages vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
This is what matters. This is beyond X's and O's. This is the difference mutual respect makes. This is what character looks like. This is what defines us in Georgia. This is sportsmanship. School sports. It's not the outcome that matters most, but the way the games are played. This message presented by the Georgia High School Association and the Georgia Athletic Directors Association.
If you've been hurt in a car wreck, contact my friend Steve Apolinski of Apolinski and Associates. He's been representing individuals for over 30 years throughout Georgia and Alabama. Email him at steve@aa-legal.com or call him 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
Welcome back. Soccer Down here, June 24th, and the Scotland bat signal was put up into the sky, and Jarrett Smith has responded. Jarrett's joining us now. What's up, Jarrett?
You know, the only thing that would make it better is if San Jose gets involved in the Scottish invasion.
Oh, jeez.
I'd just be breaking off SDH into my own program.
If a Celtic player goes to San Jose, are you going to be able to handle it?
No, not at all.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
There'd be a lot of instability in my life.
Yeah, seriously. All right, let's get to the point here. John Gallagher announced that he is headed to Aberdeen on loan. For those of us who don't follow the Scottish League on a regular basis, Aberdeen's a club that people have probably heard of, but kind of where are they at this stage in the power rankings of Scotland?
They are below Celtic and Rangers because that's what it is. Celtics won 8 titles in a row. Now, caveat comes there that a number of those have come with Rangers, went into administration, and basically disappeared from existence.
Correct.
Rangers is back. Rangers still spends a solid chunk of money. Celtic outspends everyone in the league by, like, an absurd amount of money. Aberdeen, has Derek McGuinness managing, who is solid at developing young talent. And his name's been battered about in other places before. I believe he's still going to stay for a bit, but it's a club that he could conceivably get some chances to play. They're going to have they've got a lot of young players. Coincidentally, the position that we associate Gallagher with most, that right back position, Shea Logan, 31-year-old Englishman's been playing there. I believe he just signed a contract through 2021 as well, or 2022. One of the older players on that team. I mean, you've got a lot of younger players, but they really didn't have a lot in terms of like a dedicated right wing last year. And some of the comments coming out of Aberdeen kind of led me wondering if we see Gallagher play more in an attacking role.
Yeah, I'll be intrigued. I had some back and forth. I did not expect to wake up Saturday, or no, it was yesterday morning, with Derek Ray tagging me in a tweet asking for an assessment of John Gallagher to Aberdeen fans. That caught me by surprise.
And good morning.
Yeah, so went back and forth with some different folks, and there was talk about Shea Logan, their right back. Established but getting on a bit was one of the descriptions. He could use some competition, but also mentioned that they did need cover further up on the right wing, and that Gallagher might be a player who plays a little bit on the right side in both spots. You mentioned the manager being known for developing talent. Go into that a little bit more, because I think that's a key here for a guy like Gallagher who, and this is what I said first in my assessment, is that if Atlanta United didn't have one of the best right backs in the league, I think Gallagher would have made his MLS debut by now. What's he going to get at Aberdeen in terms of development?
First off, I agree. I mean, we talked about this before, that he's not going to beat Franco. Well, 99% of the right backs in this league aren't going to start above Franco Escobar. I mean, it's just where he is. Franco's damn good. As far as going to Aberdeen, look, you're going to get some weird conditions. You're going to get some physicality. I don't think Scotland's as good as MLS, but you're going to have chances to play. Let's say you're on the right-hand side. You go to Paradise, you're going to be matching up with Scott Sinclair. Rangers is starting to develop a lot of bringing younger talent, starting to spend more as well. And they're starting to try and compete with those championship teams and trying to bring in that, explosive younger talent that's kind of unstable. And I think it'll be good for Gallagher to go there and play. And he'll be around younger guys. There were times, I believe it was in their last cup competition, I think Aberdeen started a striker on the right wing. I mean, they didn't have a lot of guys on the wing. And one of the guys they inverted sometimes to play on the right, even though he plays on left more often, is Gary Mackay-Steven, who, if I'm not mistaken, is doing his medical to go to New York City to play with the Pigeons. So they're going to need a little bit more firepower out there on the wings. I think this isn't one of those loans where he's going to go out there and he'll have to maybe scrap for a little bit of a chance here and there. I think if he goes out there and takes it seriously, there's tons of opportunity for a John Gallagher to earn time either as that attacking right back or out on the right wing. Hell, even up top. I mean, Aberdeen's got they've got strikers. They're fine in that regard, I believe. But there's going to be opportunity. Absolutely.
All right, time for the PSA for John Gallagher here. What was it like for you, knowing Scottish football as you do, to see John Gallagher evolve into the player that we saw him evolve into? What was it like for you to see that growth when we were there watching him just kind of grow into life with Atlanta United too? What were some of your highlights, and what did you see in the growth of John Gallagher as he heads overseas?
What's interesting to me is I want to see, we saw Gallagher, I think, really grab a leadership role in that team. And it's a young squad at 23 years old. He's one of the older members of that squad. I mean, Ruthven, Metcalf are a bit older. Pogba's ancient by Atlanta United 2 standards, even though he's still spry for the most part. I thought we saw Gallagher grab the leadership role and he was wearing the captain's armband when Metcalf would come off, and I thought he kind of embraced it. And I think that could suit him well in a place like Aberdeen, not to go in and say, I am the captain now, and, to take over completely, but to go in there with confidence and know that, you can play there. Because I think Jason's right. I think in the back of his mind, he needs to know the reason I haven't gotten my shot right now is not because I'm not good enough. It's because the guy in front of me at MLS is just stupid talented. And I have to go prove myself. And I think this is a good chance for him to go do that. And it's also a good, I think it'll be a good measuring stick for Atlanta United too, and where they sit. And for USL to say, hey, we're sending a guy who is performing well over to Scotland. If he does really well, I think USL can stick out their chest a bit, and Atlanta United too can stick out their chest a bit. Look at what they've done developing. Notre Dame as well is going to get a say in that. Meanwhile, he's not the only one, by the way, going back to Scotland. It looks like Andrew Gutman's been recalled to at least preseason training for Celtic, and so has Manny Perez as well as over. I believe he's going to be over there doing preseason training as well. So you got a couple of guys who are going to be going back, but I'd be really okay with seeing more of this. USL and the Scottish League teams kind of doing more loan systems like that, because I think it's a good competition for both of them both of them to benefit players going in each direction there.
Yeah, that was one of the questions that I saw pop up a lot when it came to this move is how is a player from the USL Championship going to fit going to a club like Aberdeen? What's the level comparison like? And I don't know if we completely know that just yet, because we did see, and you mentioned Perez and Gutman, I mean, 2 players come over on loan the other way to play in USL Championship this spring and into the summer, not being loaned to MLS, but being loaned to USL Championship sides. I think the level, just from my gut reaction, is a little more similar than people might think. And a club like Aberdeen is different than a club like Celtic. And I feel like Gallagher can go in and compete for minutes, and otherwise I don't think you'd loan him to go sit the bench there as opposed to playing here and being one of those leaders.
No, I think you send him over there with the understanding that he's going to be around a bunch of young players, some of them younger than he is, honestly. And you're going to be asking him to go out there and to basically grab it by the scruff and take minutes. Because, you look at guys like Sam Cosgrove was out there playing mostly up top. He's 22 years old. We talked about Shea Logan being a bit older, but even, Gary McKay-Stevens a little bit older. Niall McGinn's over there as well. McGinn's 31. He's a bit older as well. I mean, and he's been playing on both wings. I think you're going to have opportunity. You've got guys who are kind of a little long in the tooth in terms of soccer career, and some guys who are still young and trying to figure it out. And, let's say, as much as I love Gallagher, let's say he tears it up over there. Is there a buy-on clause for him? Is there an opportunity for him to kind of take this opportunity? He would not, put it this way, it wouldn't be the first time that somebody went to Scotland, kind of kickstarted the engine a bit, and then found their way south of Scotland, even if it is in the Championship or so, and found a really solid living. I think it's there's a chance he could come back here and contribute in MLS high, because I still think he can contribute to Atlanta United. But there's also the door of could open up the entire British Isles for him if he really puts everything into this.
Well, and remember with Stephen Glass, you're talking about a guy who had 112 appearances with Aberdeen and Newcastle and Watford and Hibs and Dunfermline. So that pipeline is there with Glassy for, if he sees an opportunity for a player like a Gallagher to go and, with the built-in contacts that are there. Yeah, I think that this is another one of those pipelines that's massively beneficial going forward, and that this is the first example of that.
Yeah, I think so too. Right now the only thing that comes to mind in terms of what he would be competing on the right with is Ryan Hedges. And yes, of course, Shea Logan, but I think this sets up really nicely. Gallagher's not going to a place where there's a ton of bodies he's going to have to fight through. I think it does set up nicely, and I think the relationship you had with Glass there, I think the relationship you had with Bocanegra, his time at Rangers, with his, he's going to understand at least some of the Scottish League. I think all of it helps, and like we talked about, this becoming a thing for USL, and especially, mid-tier Scottish teams doing back and forth with USL, I don't think it's a bad idea. I mean, hell, honestly, I think it's a damn sight better than sending somebody to go play for Falkirk in the 2nd Division Scottish League. Bring them over. Send them to play North Carolina or Nashville or, New Mexico. I go, God, never mind, don't send them to New Mexico. You have the same thing when, as Dion Pereira talking about April being too warm.
Yeah, I don't think they're ready for that.
No. I don't think we're ready to send some 20-year-old kid from the Highlands out to New Mexico and it's 113 degrees.
So we'll see if this starts a trend of Scottish players coming this way, USL Championship players going that way, and kind of finding out where the loans are. What else has been on your mind as of late? What else is Jarrett Smith ranting about when it comes to the world of soccer?
Actually, I've been on a baseball rant for the last 12 hours because of Adam Eaton's comments, but
that shows at 1 o'clock on the app, if you know the secret password.
Yeah, that is the F Adam Eaton hour and the my issues with baseball and paying minor leaguers hour. As far as soccer goes, man, I know we might as well just tease it. We got a couple minutes for Jessica jumps on and we get into the soccer, the women's soccer mindset of it. England Cameroon was bonkers, but I'll leave that one because I know that's going to carry a lot of conversation. How good have the last 2 days been with the late games? When you had, Australia somehow hang on to get it to penalties and then they collapse. Then they collapse in penalties, and Sam Kerr, who was a lot of people's thought for Golden Boot, just has, I can only call it a nightmare, especially in the second half of that game and through penalties. And then you have the France game with Brazil. I mean, how great has that been? 2 straight days where the late game has gone to extra time, and it's been back and forth and breathless and fun. It's not always been beautiful, being kind of sloppy sometimes, but it's 120 minutes. The human body can only take so much, and it's been such a fun cup. And now I have to go emotionally prepare myself for the USA and Spain because, look, I mean, I had France winning this tournament. They don't look right now. I know, Jason, you're really high on England. John, I don't know who you're really high on right now. I don't know what your bracket looks like.
I had my bracket is a quarter blown with Australia going away, but I had England beating Germany in the final and France finishing third.
Is that the revised bracket or is that the original bracket?
This is the original. I did not revise.
Well, no. Hold on. Like, FIFA revised it because you had a new bracket challenge that came out after there was actually a real bracket.
No, I didn't even know that FIFA re-FIFA'd the bracket challenge. But
it's hard to pick a bracket when there's not a real bracket. So you pick a real bracket, and I think what Jarrett's referring to with me, like in my original bracket, I picked France because I thought France would be better than they have been. In the way that the bracket played out for real in the tournament, I think England and Germany have the easiest roads to the final. And I think that's your final, and England, I believe, is a better team than Germany. Now,
I like how this man
how that plays out, because I looked at the bracket as it ended up being developed, that France would have a tougher time with Brazil than maybe we expected coming in. I think they did.
Yeah.
France hasn't been as strong as they have, and even if they do get to the semifinal round, and I think they won't now, I think the U.S. is playing better, whoever gets out of that game is going to have a lot more to deal with than England should with Norway, although Norway's been better than we expected. Germany has an easier road on the other side. I think Germany probably has the easiest road to the final of anybody in the tournament.
Yeah,
hey,
I think so.
Say that again, Jared.
I mean, you play the games you're given.
Yeah, and sometimes the bracket falls for you, and I feel like it maybe has in this case for Germany. So we'll see if
never
they can
apologize for it.
No, you win the games that are in front of you, and you can't handle nothing you can do about France being weaker than we expected. Nothing we can handle about teams being in different spots in the bracket than maybe was intended coming in, and a little more challenging than you thought it was going to be. And surprises happening where you might have an easier match than people thought. That's just how it goes, and we'll see how the rest of this tournament goes. I think it's going to be another wild ride today with U.S. and Spain. Real quick, Jarrett, before we finish up, what's your key today when it comes to U.S. and Spain? What does the U.S. have to do to not have to sweat this one out?
Joe Ellis, please don't get cute. Don't try things. Please.
Lineup-wise or tactically or both?
Yes.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at, too. We'll find out about a half hour on the lineup.
Yeah, we will. And as far as France goes with everything, I mean, look, France didn't look great. You don't have to look convincing. Just keep winning. France could, back their way into the final for all we know. I mean, I've said this before between us. You could convince me France is going to let's say America gets through. You could convince me France wins that game 1-0 just by playing good defense, and Wendy Renard gets on the end of the set piece, and whoever is in goal for the U.S. just gets caught in between. You could convince me France just uglies their way to the final because they are talented enough. They just haven't put it together. But I like that side of the bracket. It's so much fun. The last 2 days have been so much fun. Let's keep it going. As much as we talk about the Cameroon thing, that does deserve discussion. Let's also take a break and talk about how much damn fun this tournament has been, because it deserves it. The level of play has been outstanding. It's going to get better as the years go on, and I'm so excited.
100%. Jarrett, thanks. We'll try to get you on Soccer Over There later tonight as well. You can talk more about deep diving into the Scottish League.
Hey, Scottish invasion's coming, baby.
Oh, jeez. All right, we're going to take a break. We'll get Jessica Charman on the line right after this.
A ranger station.
I'd like to report a bear hug.
Okay.
I put out my campfire and Smokey Bear hugged me.
So you drowned the fire, you stirred it, drowned it again, and felt that it was cold?
Uh-huh.
Yep, he's just letting you know you did good.
Bear hug from Smokey Bear. Status update.
I'm gonna let you go now. There are many ways to start a fire, but one sure way to put it out. Learn how you can do your part at SmokeyBear.com.
Sponsored by the U.S. Forest Service Ad Council and your state forester.
As a business owner, you know that every year brings new challenges and opportunities. The success of your business demands expertise and focus. And Country Financial can help you keep that focus by helping ensure you have the right insurance protection in place to meet your goals. Jason Wright can help you create a customized insurance plan that has coverages designed just for your business. Give Jason a call at 678-568-6871 or reach him on Facebook at Jason Wright Agency. Coverages vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
This is what matters. This is beyond X's and O's. This is the difference mutual respect makes. This is what character looks like. This is what defines us in Georgia. This is sportsmanship. School sports. It's not the outcome that matters most, but the way the games are played. This message presented by the Georgia High School Association and the Georgia Athletic Directors Association.
If you've been hurt in a car wreck, contact my friend Steve Apolinsky of Apolinsky and Associates. He's been representing individuals for over 30 years throughout Georgia and Alabama. Email him at steve@aa-legal.com or call him 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
You're listening to Soccer Down Here daily on SDH Networks, a division of OSG Sports. Find us at Soccer Down Here on Facebook and Twitter. The time is now the top of the hour. Peep, y'all.
Welcome back. Hour number 2. Soccer Down Here, June 24th. Jason Longshore. The birthday boy, John Nelson, is with us.
Don't feel a day over 127.
And Jessica Charman is with us from the World Cup date and from Unrelegated, Queens of the South. Play-by-play with Peachtree City MOBA. And I think we might have lost Jessica, actually.
All that build-up.
She's back now.
Hello?
I tried to space it out. I was giving you the long introduction when I saw that you dropped, and now you're back.
I'm back. Yes, I am here. I didn't hear my introduction, but I hope it was good.
It was very nice.
And to the last point of your intro before we get into the weekend,
yes.
What was it like being in the booth for Peachtree City MOBA?
Oh, it was brilliant. It was exciting. It was good to be back. I've done a few college games, but this was a different level. And I'll be honest, I was really pleasantly surprised with the standard of USL 2 as well. It's really exciting to see that is the fourth tier of soccer in America, and the level is great. So that's a good sign for soccer in America.
Go check out the goal that I posted this morning. A friend of the show, Jackson Popkin, posted the video. Luca Mayer from South Georgia Tormenta 2 scored a game winner in the 88th minute against Dalton, who you had on Friday, from 60 yards out, chipping the goalkeeper in the 88th minute to win it with 10 men. It was just a wild goal. Got to be goal of the week. But yeah, it's a good level, and it's a fun level to call, and it's a fun level to keep up with, because that's the next generation of pros in the country.
Agreed.
Yeah, and I'm excited. There's another game against Dalton. For some reason, the scheduling's very weird, but I think I'll be back on July 1st when they take on Dalton again at home. So we're going to be fed up of Dalton and talking about Dalton now, and maybe Peachtree City MOBA will get an 88th winner from the 60-yard line as well.
It's a rivalry, Dalton and Peachtree City. We'll see how that develops. But let's get into rivalries that are developing at the Women's World Cup. All kinds of stories and thoughts and tweets and rants about yesterday and England and Cameroon. Now that it's been not quite 24 hours, we talked a lot about it last night. We're not going to go into as much detail. If you haven't caught the World Cup date, go check it out for all of our maybe more unfiltered thoughts, but just reflections on the whole situation with the England-Cameroon match.
Yeah, still really weird. I woke up this morning and thought I would just be like over it, but it was still just a really odd feeling. Like I say, the thing that really epitomized it for me was the fact that England won 3-0, are through to a quarterfinal, didn't concede a goal, haven't conceded a goal since the first group game, and I'm still not exactly elated or delighted just because of the way the game went. It wasn't the soccer that we've grown to love over this World Cup, or that we've been so treated with. Instead, it was overshadowed by some just very strange happenings on the field that in my 24 years I've never ever seen.
Well, and then I think you just get into the Phil Neville post-match interview on the pitch. And I think that epitomizes a lot of folks' opinions about what was seen out there, because there's a responsibility and toward future generations. And when you see something like that, it impacts those in the home country, but it also impacts everybody that watched it. And so I think that what Phil Neville said was bang on about what you're watching in the future of the game itself. It was one of those moments that can be a teaching tool, but at the same time, it was something that you never want to have to teach.
Yeah, it's the level of dissent that was seen was just something that, look, maybe we're being dramatic. I know that's what some people are saying, but if you're a young kid with an impressionable mind watching the Women's World Cup, which has been such an incredible sort of role model for women's football so far, but if you watch that game, that's a bit of a concern. If you see dissent like that, you see behavior like that on the field, you see gamesmanship and aggression that's just, too much aggression. It's not a good look for those young minds. And the way the referee is treated on that field was just a shame to watch. And perhaps she should have put some cards out. Perhaps she should have stamped down early on. But at the end of the day, everything that went to VAR was correct. It was narrow, but it was correct. And it's something that people are going to have to get used to, whether it works for or against you. These calls are going to be given now. And I understand the contentious ones in terms of fouls and, penalties given, handballs, because those can be of interpretation. But everything here was offside, and you can't get a little bit offside. You're offside or you're not, and VAR is going to get offside correct.
Yeah, it's such a tricky situation, because I do subscribe to the theory that Charles Barkley put out there years and years and years ago about he's not a role model. Athletes are not role models. They are, but they aren't. I mean, we can't praise teams when they go and they inspire the next generation like Jamaica did. We can't only do that and not talk about this, but you also can't talk about what happened with Cameroon without getting into the issues that we talked about last night. You have 8 players who are playing in a major professional league. The rest of the squad doesn't. You had a team that only played 1 match in 2018, period. They didn't play the year before at all. You have no support from the federation, and with Cameroon, it's consistent with the men and the women with support. The federation's been a nightmare, honestly, since Cameroon got on the world stage in the Men's World Cup in 1982. So it's a very complicated situation, but you can't completely excuse the behavior either. And for me, the biggest one that jumped out was the foul at the very end on Steph Houghton, England's captain, and the reaction to it, because while people felt bad for Cameroon being upset, and your heart goes out to them in those reactions.
Yeah, no one wants to see players crying on the field.
Captain. Yeah, you don't want to see that. But now England could be missing their captain for a World Cup quarterfinal because of a player who didn't handle the situation well and went in with a horrendous tackle.
Mm-hmm. I agree. And that's when you understand why Neville was quite so rocked and shaken in his post-game interview, because he's just watched his captain be attacked. I think he said borderline assaulted, and it was a malicious challenge. And as we went on about last night, the biggest thing is this game wasn't close by this point. This game was over. It was the 80 something, late 80 minutes. There was no coming back for Cameroon, and those sort of challenges don't need to happen when the game is at that level. The ball's going out of play, and it was just a shocker for me. And the more you watched it back, the worse it got. But honestly, the tackle wasn't what bothered me the most. It was the coach's reaction. Look, the players are youngsters. They're inexperienced at this level. They're the ones on the field getting heated, but the coach is meant to be the leader, and is the figurehead and the person that should be rational and explaining to his players, hey, you need to calm down. He literally stepped over her, ignored her, and went on complaining about something else. And that was just horrendous to me. And, the captain does the same. The captain comes over to Horton and tells her to get up, and she's had a leg-breaking tackle potentially on her. And as Neville said, as the commentator said, as anyone that's ever watched England play will say, Horton's not one that stays down. There was a challenge early on in one of the group stages where she blocked some sort of cross, and the follow through was nasty, and she got straight back up to defend the corner. So that was a concern to all of us. And as an England fan, with the thought of losing your captain for such a pivotal game against a strong Norwegian side, that could really cost us, and that tackle could cost us. And it's disappointing. And we talked about the yellow card. Yeah, maybe it was a sympathy call. Maybe the referee was trying to get out of there, but that deserved a red card for me any day. I don't care how much controversy's been in the game, how much complaints. That needed a red card. I'm okay with the penalty call being overruled, potentially as another sympathy call, but the red card has to happen because that's player safety, and that player needs to be punished. And who knows when Cameroon will play their next international game, but at the end of the day, that player needs to be banned for a game to make up for the fact that she went in such a malicious way.
And then you have Jumfa in his post-match discussing things about miscarriage of justice. Referee made a lot of mistakes, and players saying, they wanted England to win and that kind of thing. And that's another dangerous precedent on a world stage for young players who are looking at this kind of thing if they're, watching press conferences and things. But to have the leader of your team, meaning the coach, saying these kinds of things, it's another dangerous idea that's been put out there already.
Yeah, it's a sad way because we should be teaching people to be gracious in defeat and victory. And I understand why they're frustrated. And as I said to Jason, when that first goal went in for Cameroon in the 47th minute that then went to VAR, part of me in my heart just wanted it to be given because I didn't want any more reason for there to be controversy and anger and, frustrations and different reasons given to blame. And look, I know FIFA has its issues, but that wasn't match fixing. And England did well and dealt with the circumstances, but this game's going to impact England in other ways. I think we read an article from Millie Bright, who was playing in the centre-back position next to Houghton, and she was saying everyone on England was confused on how to respond. When you have players that are literally refusing to kick off and the other team is thinking that they're going to forfeit the game, how can you play properly with that in the back of your mind? And it's just a shame that this is what we're talking about, because it's an exciting time for England. This is our best chance at a World Cup yet, and we're playing pretty well. But what kind of preparation was this game, mentally and physically?
Let's start looking ahead to the rest of the tournament now. England will move on to a quarterfinal with Norway. Australia, to me, is the match of the tournament. Just end-to-end stuff, a blast to watch it. You feel bad for Sam Kerr and her penalty in the shootout, but Norway has been a team that we've been talking about a lot that is flying under the radar, and they can give England problems.
Yeah, they can. And that's why if Houghton's gone, it's going to be such a miss, because she's not only a great centre-back, she's a great leader on the field that keeps the team as organised as they can be. So I'm hopeful that we have her. I think England has a lot going forward. We didn't show it as much as we could have against Cameroon. We've got goals in us, but we also have some defensive errors in us, as we've seen. We gave Cameroon 2 chances on a plate, one that they finished, one that Barsley made a great save for. And you can't be giving those chances up to Norway in a quarter-final. The one thing I think we've got going for us is, as much as this game was a very strange one mentally for England, out of the two teams that exerted the most energy, I would say that we definitely had an easier route to the game. And if everyone does come back fit, I think our squad probably has that advantage over the fact that Norway went all the way to penalties and had probably a more physically draining game against Australia than we did against Cameroon.
Then the question that was asked of me in the first hour, I'll ask you in the second hour. How's your bracket?
Destroyed. I don't even remember, but I had France winning, and right now after their performance against Brazil, I don't see France winning. I still think that US fans need to realize that they have another game to play, that they're not already playing France. That's my pet peeve at the moment, people already preparing their tactics for France versus USA. But when I looked at the bracket pre-hand, and I always had France playing US in that quarterfinal in Paris, I thought France was going to not walk it, but have a pretty comfortable game. But if the US is to beat Spain, it's going to be France have a comfortable game against the US.
The US has been good in the tournament, but we talked about it coming in. Really, it wasn't going to start for them until the Sweden match, and Sweden kind of punted that, honestly, with so many changes they made to their lineup. So now for the United States, the first test is today against Spain. That can be really difficult for a team like the United States. They're going to play a team in Spain today that wants to control possession. It's been the United States and Spain 1-2 in this tournament in terms of possession, and they have played teams, even Sweden, who sat back and defended. You're not going to get that today, and how the U.S. responds will be a major talking point about how this match finishes out.
No, I agree completely. I've been saying ever since the US beat Thailand 13-0 that this wasn't actually a good thing for the US because they didn't face any real tough challenges. They haven't had a chance to truly work their defensive back line. And when they haven't looked great. I've got concerns about the US's back line, and I think Spain will be the most forward-going team that they play against. And Sweden might have been a real challenge, but as you say, they rested or twisted so many players around that I don't think it was a real truthful Sweden versus US game. So I'm really interested for this match. I think it's an unpredictable one, and I don't think it's going to be the walk in the park that a lot of US pundits are making it out to be, because yes, the US women's national team is a fantastic group of players, but they're not invincible, and they definitely have some weak spots, particularly in the back and with the goalkeeper, in my opinion.
So I have two ways that I was going to take this follow-up. I was going to ask you, since we got into it, how would you have handled group stage if you were in charge of the women's national team? Because of all the rotation and the starting 11s and things like that, would you have kept pretty much the same 11 to get familiar with each other so you could get ready for knockouts, or how would you have handled it?
Yeah, I would have tried to have more consistency in my squad. I understand wanting to try out players and see how they work together, but I don't think that's where the World Cup's for. I think that's what your pre-game's for. And we all spoke about Ellis and thought that she probably didn't have an idea of what her best team was before the World Cup, and that's not a good look. That's not a good look, in my opinion. When you're playing weaker squads, particularly with your defensive line, accumulatively in the group stages, there's only going to be 3 or 4. I only remember maybe 3 or 4 real defensive plays that they had to defend. And that's why you need the same back line, the same goalkeeper, the same defensive midfielders, because there's not going to be enough challenges for them to face. And I didn't really agree with, I'll use England as an example. I thought Neville changed a little bit too much, but at least with England, they were facing teams that were offering them some sort of challenge at the back. When we played Scotland, the goalkeeper got challenges, so I understood why Telford might have been able to get some minutes. I think the US has done too many changes. I still don't know if Ellis knows what her best team is, which is a little scary this late into the tournament already.
Yeah, we're waiting to see if her best team takes the field today, or what she thinks is her best team. I think it has to if everybody is healthy. and all the reports yesterday were that Ertz and Morgan would be ready to go for this one. We'll wait and see on the U.S. Let's look to the other side of the bracket, where it feels like it's Germany really out in front of the other teams on the side, but the Netherlands, to me, look like the one that could be a big surprise as they've grown into the tournament.
Yeah, I agree. Germany is absolutely solid, yet to concede a goal. We had pundits saying that they're hoping to emulate 2007 when they went all the way and didn't concede a goal the entire tournament. I'm not sure they can do that, but they look a solid unit. They weren't great in their first game, but from then on, they've really grown into the tournament and they're getting hot at the right time. And I would say that's a pretty similar story for the Netherlands. Early on, they didn't look great. They got lucky with their late goal early on in the tournament, but now they're looking good and they're looking consistent, and they're a shock for me. And maybe they shouldn't have been because they are the Euro champions, but they weren't a team that really stood out to me early on. But they've come together in this tournament, and I'll say something that I think has a lot to do with it. It's the fan base. Everyone all over Twitter has been retweeting the Dutch fans, and their support is incredible. And obviously I know it's right next to France, but I would say it mirrors the home support easily.
So how locked in were you over these 4 matches? I know that you and Jason got to do cup dates, but how much of a joy was it to watch 4 matches like the 4 that we saw over the weekend, and how locked in on these things were you? Was the rest of the world just absolutely phased out of existence and you were locked in on these 4 matches, or what was it like to see that kind of cool stuff?
I watched the Australia game was freaking nuts. That was one of the best games I've ever watched. And I mean that. And the first 15, 20 minutes were a bit underwhelming. I was a little bit worried about how it was going to go, but I was actually getting my hair cut while the Australia game was on, and I had my phone on, and I had the sound on, the hairdressers. I'm not sure everyone was happy about it, but I couldn't. I had to listen. So I was really into that one. The only game I haven't enjoyed watching, as I said, was England versus Cameroon. And about 70 minutes in, I started sort of pottering around and not really paying attention to the whole game because it was that stage of discomfort. Like I say, when you're watching players on the field literally have breakdowns and crying, that was the only game for me that hasn't been enjoyable. Other than that, this World Cup, I mean, not even these 4 games, every single game I have on in the background. And you know, it's not the best for my productivity, but it's definitely the best for my love of the game.
Yeah, I've watched much more of the Women's World Cup than Copa America or the Gold Cup. I think it's been just a great tournament and should continue hitting, kind of next level. It already is in terms of ratings. It seems like Fox sets a new record with every match. The BBC had great ratings yesterday for England and Cameroon. Spain is expecting a huge number today for their national team. It's been very cool to see all of that growth, and I think we're only scratching the surface for it. But, Jess, while we've got you, we got to also get into Atlanta United because they're back in league play on Wednesday against Toronto. I was just talking to Mike Conti about this over text yesterday. We're both looking forward to this so much because it feels like it's been forever since we've called a game.
Absolutely.
Going into a busy month of league play, where do you feel like the team is after both the way they ended their run in the league on June 1st, but a couple of Open Cup wins as well? Where do you feel like Atlanta United stands at the moment?
I think we're in good. I think we're in a good place. The rest has hopefully been good for us. We've been able to work on a few things. I'm glad that we have Barco back. Obviously, that'll make a big change. It's a shame that Venezuela are doing pretty well in Copa America right now because that's going to be a real miss for us. But I've been excited to watch the Open Cup games, and I'm interested to see whether that's going to change our squad potentially. Vazquez has really put his foot in the door, and Merrim as well. And it's been good to get some minutes under some players' belts that haven't played. And I'm excited to see the lineup, considering that we are missing, a couple of players through different international tournaments. And we're playing Toronto, who really we should pick up a win against.
reports out of training this morning, Julian Gressel back with the first team training. Tito Villalba is not on the field as of the beginning of training, according to Chris Meister, Pro Soccer USA, and Doug Robertson of the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. Yeah, I mean, Tito has had an injury issue. We haven't seen him back with the group yet. He's been in Atlanta. He's been receiving treatment. How much of a concern is that for you?
I don't know how much Tito really wants to stay. Honestly, in the future, he's been a good asset, but he hasn't been getting as many minutes as he was used to in the past. It's a concern to an extent because he does offer the speed, he does offer the unpredictable nature of his play, but we do have some options out there, and it's a shame for him because I think he's a fan favorite, but I think we'll be okay. Gressel has had an odd season, but he's one that can always be dangerous, and hopefully he can get back fit and ready to play for us because he's a big player in the team.
One moment from the Gold Cup that I have to ask you about before we go. Tata Martino received the first yellow card
I saw that.
in Gold Cup history. Now that referees can show yellow cards to managers, do you like this?
Yes and no. I mean, it didn't really work with Tata. He sat down for roughly 30 seconds before he got up again and started yelling. So, I mean, it's fairly interesting as a crowd, I think, because it does help the crowd understand what's going on. It does give the coaches a sort of warning rather than just being sent straight off. But there's people like Tata who just have a coaching style that this isn't going to work on. He's going to be loud regardless, but it could really impact the Mexican national team because I don't want to, touch fate, but there's a chance that Tata could be the first coach to get sent away from the stands based on his style. Very passionate, but probably rubs a few referees the wrong way. And, I'm pretty sure that it's the same rules that not only would he be gone for the game after he got the red card, he would probably get suspended for a game too, I would imagine. Correct. If he got a red card. So that sort of punishment should really wake the coaches up and hopefully, make them respect the referees a little bit more. And it does give the refs a little bit more power to use those yellow cards as a warning. So I don't think it's a bad thing, but I don't think it really changes that much at all.
Yeah, I'll be curious to see who the first manager is to actually be shown a red card on the touchline. Haven't seen it yet, but I think it will happen in this Gold Cup. And that's the rules now across the board. So we could see it in the Women's World Cup. We haven't yet. We could see it in any competition going forward. It's going to be interesting with all the changes. We've talked about them a ton because we've had plenty of different reasons to during the World Cup dates. We'll have another one for you this afternoon after U.S. and Spain at 11:30, and then Canada-Sweden, which kind of feels like a letdown after all of the hype for U.S.-Spain.
It's going to be the best game ever, Jason.
I hope so. I'm not expecting Norway and Australia out of that. I'm expecting like 1-0 and trying to keep my eyes open.
We shall see. Maybe you can curse them like you cursed the Australia team.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Sam Kerr. I apologize to Sam Kerr publicly for picking Australia to get to the final because it had some bad effect. Yeah, it was not good. All right, Jess, thanks for your time. Appreciate it. We'll talk to you later on the World Cup date.
Thanks, guys. Talk to you soon.
We're going to take a quick break. We'll come back, and we'll see if we have a U.S. national team lineup waiting on us. Be right back after this.
Looking for future leaders we can trust and believe in? Look no further than the high school student athletes right here in Georgia. High school sports teach young people how to be effective leaders. It begins by making their grades and being on time for practice. It includes learning to listen, following directions, accepting responsibility, being a good role model. And it's about respect for officials, opponents, the rules, and each other. The result? It transcends sports. It gives us hope for the future. High school sports. There's so much more than just a game. This message presented by the Georgia High School Association and the Georgia Athletic Directors Association.
Today's show is presented by Appolinsky & Associates, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience, supporters of Atlanta United, the Faction, and Inter-Atlanta Youth Football Club. If you've been hurt in a wreck, contact Steve today at steve@aa-legal.com or call in 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Welcome back. Soccer Down here, June 24th. It's an Overreaction Monday, so if you have things to overreact about, please do so on Twitter at Soccer Down here. We'll get to those as we wrap up today. United States and Spain in the round of 16 at the Women's World Cup, kicking off about 11:30. We should be seeing a lineup at any time now. I don't think they're on the same exact kind of timeline that we do with Major League Soccer, where it is 60 minutes before kick. That's when lineups are supposed to be made public. It's roughly around that time. Usually we've at least seen some hints, or some of the reporters who are around the team start to break some news. Have not seen anything as of yet.
And I am fishing any possible idea of who to look at on the Twitters to try to figure out what the lineup could be, and I'm seeing nothing.
Well, while you're doing that, let's talk a little bit about what Marta had to say after the match yesterday, because we haven't gotten deep into it. After the match, it felt like a mission statement in a lot of ways. Is it Marta's last World Cup? It could be. Not a definite, but it could be. And she gave a statement for the ages afterwards. And I don't know how much of it was really designed to go towards the Brazilian players, her younger teammates. I mean, she talked about just being ready to play for 90 minutes, being ready to play for 30 more. You can't rely on the Formigas and the Martas and the Cristianes going forward. And she said the women's game depends on you to survive. And she was pointing at the camera as she said it. Think about that, value it more. And the line she finished with, cry in the beginning so you can smile in the end. I mean, that's powerful stuff. And she's right. The women's game has superstars right now. And whether it's Marta for Brazil, whether it's, Alex Morgan, Megan Rapinoe for the United States, Marazan for Germany, there are superstars with so many of these teams, but they can't carry the game forever. It has to be that next generation coming through, and it has to be that next generation who, to a degree, and this kind of gets back to the whole England-Cameroon stuff and role models and this and that, but young players coming up do have to understand that there is a responsibility. And maybe there is a greater responsibility on the women's side as the game is growing and to inspire that next generation. I think it's something that over the last few decades with the U.S. women's national team, you've seen players, I think, embrace that role a little bit and understand that it is part of the gig. I mean, Mia Hamm talked about it often. She was a very introverted personality, and she wasn't comfortable going out and doing the media appearances and doing late-night TV and doing commercials and that type of stuff. But she understood that she had to, and it was something that she didn't like to do, but she had to do it for the next generation coming through. And I think where Marta's taking it is to the next level about being professional athletes, and there is a responsibility to being ready to perform at your absolute best. Brazil struggled with fitness in this tournament. They wilted as games went on. And it was telling to me that in this match, it's Marta 1v1 defending inside the 18 in stoppage time and regulation time to keep her team alive. And if she doesn't make that play, it's done then. And she's sacrificing for the group and outrunning people at that stage of the match. You need more players like that. I think every team wants players like this, not just the ability, but the work. And if the game is going to continue to grow, and I think it is, and I think now you're starting to see more and more players like Marta, it does take that next generation to embrace the challenge and lift the game to another level.
And one of the things that I didn't know until that speech was why she went with the color lipstick she has in the tournament. And it was, I always wear lipstick, not that color, but today I said, I'm going to dare. I tried it, and I think it was good. The color is of blood because we had to leave blood on the pitch. Now I'm going to use it in every game.
Well, I love that's the conversation about this match, because that's the type of talk that you get out of a knockout round game on the men's side. And I love that it's not any different, because it shouldn't be. And I think the game will continue to grow when it is like that. It shouldn't be looked at differently because it is a Women's World Cup round of 16 match as opposed to a Men's World Cup round of 16 match. You would hear French players and Brazilian players in that match on the men's side talking about sacrificing and blood, sweat, and tears and all of that. That would be the conversation coming into that match.
Mm-hmm.
It should be the conversation coming into that match and coming out of that match on the women's side. It's, for me, I think, and maybe it's some of the reactions to everything with England-Cameroon, that when we've talked about it here, we've tried to talk about it from so many different levels because it is very multifaceted. There were bad actions that happened from the Cameroon team that you don't want to see repeated. There are reasons for that outside of their control. All of that is absolutely true. It's a situation where I think, when the women's game is discussed and talked about in the same ways that the men's game is, I think it benefits ultimately. And I think it draws more fans into the conversation when it is not treated differently. These are unbelievable athletes, period. And I do think that soccer is a game where the comparisons, and it always comes up, and you'll see people make comparisons, well, the women aren't as fast, or the skill level's not the same, all that type of nonsense. The game is played the same way here, more so than any other sport, in my opinion. In a team sport, I don't think there's a comparison as much as it is in soccer, because your tactics are the same, the way the game's played the same. Are there differences between male and female athletes? Yeah, absolutely. We all know that. Nobody's arguing that. But the level of play in this tournament has been outstanding. I've enjoyed it more than the Copa America and more than the Gold Cup. I've watched more of it.
Yeah,
I've watched more matches
I have
with teams
too.
that I don't really have any, affinity for. I thought I would watch more of the Copa America and the Gold Cup as we got to this point. I haven't been. I've enjoyed the Women's World Cup more. It's something that came up in that study that we talked about last week that Manchester City and Copa 90 did. One of the biggest things that's holding the women's game back is access and information. It's something that the NWSL has to hear, because right now, after this tournament, people watching this in record numbers, and not just watching the United States in record numbers, watching the whole tournament in record numbers. If you had NWSL matches on FS1, FS2 after the tournament is over, and some of these players are in those matches, you would see people tune in greater numbers. Period. You would. People want this content now. The level is amazing. The quality is amazing. People want to be able to watch this. you have to go to Yahoo Sports and watch on a stream. That is an extra layer of work that some people will not do. Flat out. I think it's time. It's time for the NWSL to go in big. You're seeing the Women's Super League in England start to go in big. When you're talking about $1 million deals for Sam Kerr, or £1 million deals for Sam Kerr, even more. You're going in big. Chelsea wants to go in big and get Sam Kerr and get a superstar. You're going to see more teams do that. Manchester United will be in the Women's Super League for the first time next year as that league continues to grow. Real Madrid talking about they've essentially purchased the rights to a smaller club in La Liga on the women's side, and they will have it under the Real Madrid banner. Real Madrid's not going to want to be second to Barcelona in anything. Barcelona was a Champions League finalist this past year. So you're going to see Real Madrid spend. Serie A was one of the most competitive leagues. That's not going to stop. It's time for the NWSL, I think, to start to look big and realize that they have an audience who wants to watch this, that is male and female, and just wants the content. And it's so hard at times to get that content and get this discussion and have these conversations about the game beyond just the basics of growing women's sport. It's at a stage now that it can stand on its own. And it can be discussed. We can sit here just like we have wrung our hands all season long about Atlanta United's tactics. Well, North Carolina Courage fans want to have that conversation about Paul Riley's tactics. Or the Portland Thorns want to have that conversation about why they didn't win a trophy last year. All these types of things. It's very hard to do so at times. And now is the time for it to blow up. Now is the time, I think, for a TV deal, for major coverage of this, and it will benefit the game, and the audience is ready for it, in my opinion.
And Hudson, at the Mile High 17, along those same lines. Spicy weekend in the Women's World Cup. This tournament, for the most part, has been really exciting, and most of these ladies can play. All capital letters with an exclamation point. This World Cup has me really excited and ready for the possibility for an Atlanta United ladies team. Hashtag Overreaction Monday.
Would love to see it, and I hope that the timing now with NWSL and Major League Soccer and ownership groups who are ready to take on that challenge and invest in it properly, I hope that all these things start to fall into place. And I would expect that Atlanta would be part of that conversation when it is ready to go. The NWSL has had issues at the league level. There's no denying that. They had the partnership with Lifetime. That went away on the eve of the season. It's something that the league has to be stronger as well to be ready for that investment. I think it's time. I hope it's time. I hope we start to see it. This is going to be a conversation that will definitely be ongoing. But right now we have a U.S. women's national team lineup. Let's get into it.
All
U.S.
right.
and Spain, round of 16. The lineup would have been my pick for it as well, maybe with one exception, and it was kind of a toss-up here. This would have been my lineup before the tournament as your first choice 11. So listen there in goal, backline left to right, Crystal Dunn, Becky Sauerbrunn, Abby Dahlkemper, Kelly O'Hara. Midfield trio, Julie Ertz is back in the team as the 6. 2 central midfielders with her, Samantha Mewis, Rose Lavelle. Up front, left to right, Megan Rapinoe, Alex Morgan, Tobin Heath. Mewis keeps her spot. It's Lindsay Horan who goes to the bench. I would have guessed this before the tournament started because Horan had some injury issues coming in. At this stage, I would have thought about sitting Lavelle, even though she's been outstanding in the tournament, because Horan gives you a little more two-way play. I'll be curious to see how it plays out against Spain. Spain is going to want to have a lot of the ball. If the U.S. controls possession, I think you're fine with this. If the U.S. is on their heels a little bit more than they're comfortable with, Horan over Lavelle might have been the choice. Lavelle's going to give you more going forward, more 1v1 especially. Horan, who played the 6 in the match against Sweden, really wasn't tested quite as much as we thought she might be. is on the bench to start here. That could be helpful if you get past this, but we'll see if it's the right lineup choice to start with. I would have went Horan over Lavelle, but it is a little bit of a coin toss there.
And obviously, if you're looking at Spain, the player to look at is Jennifer Hermoso. And I want to see how Spain, with her speed, tries to attack the back four. And that, for me, is the matchup section that I'm looking at when Spain is going to be in possession and trying to get things done offensively against the USA.
I mean, for me, it's about the patience for the United States, because they're not going to see as much of the possession as they have in this tournament. How are they going to handle that? I think they can use that to their advantage. Look, we know the depth the United States has. Now you add Horan to that in this one. You have Horan, you have Mallory Pugh, you have Kristen Press, you have Carly Lloyd, who can all come off the bench in attacking roles. I feel like this is a game where you can use your press, your athleticism. You have a team that is more athletic than Spain. I think Spain is probably more technical across the board. You have more speed. Press them, cause those turnovers, because Spain hasn't really truly been pressed in that way in this tournament either. And you have the reinforcements to come in and replace players if they need to late. If Megan Rapinoe can't give you 90 minutes here, you have Kristen Press, you have Mallory Pugh who can step into that role. If Morgan's not 90 minutes fit, and there's probably a strong question about that after coming off at halftime against Sweden, okay, you have Carly Lloyd who can come in and spell her. You're asking that front three to make life difficult for Spain as they try to build out of the back, and you let them know that each of them have a replacement if needed on the bench. That should free them up to really put Spain under that intense pressure early on.
And I know at some point you probably will, before the end of the show, hit Thunder and Lightning, because we now have the full MLS All-Star roster for the matchup for the All-Star weekend down in Orlando.
Okay, we'll get to that in just a bit. U.S. lineup is out for the match with Spain. We will get deeper into it. We'd love to hear your reactions to it as we get closer to kickoff. Tweet at us at Soccer Down here on an Overreaction Monday. We're going to get to your tweets. We're going to get to the rest of the news of the day and give you some final thoughts ahead of U.S.-Spain right after the break.
Looking for future leaders we can trust and believe in? Look no further than the high school student athletes right here in Georgia. High school sports teach young people how to be effective leaders. It begins by making their grades and being on time for practice. It includes learning to listen, following directions, accepting responsibility, being a good role model. And it's about respect for officials, opponents, the rules, and each other. The result? It transcends sports. It gives us hope for the future. High school sports. There's so much more than just a game. This message presented by the Georgia High School Association and the Georgia Athletic Directors Association.
Today's show is presented by Appolinsky & Associates, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience, supporters of Atlanta United, Faction, and Inter-Atlanta Youth Football Club. If you've been hurt in a wreck, contact Steve today at steve@aa-legal.com or call in 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Welcome back. Final segment. Soccer Down here, June 24th, U.S. Women's National Team match day, knockout round of 16 against Spain. Lindsey Horan out of the lineup. Samantha Mewis keeps her spot. Julie Ertz, Alex Morgan back in the lineup today. Morgan left at halftime of the Sweden match. Ertz did not play due to precautionary reasons, a hip contusion. She starts from the beginning today. Lindsey Horan is on a yellow card, as Stephen Goff of the Washington Post points out. That could have factored into the thinking here. We'll see if she's needed today. Hopefully, the United States can get out to an early lead. I don't feel like Spain is a team that has a lot of firepower to come back. They're a team that can get a lead if they get a goal through Hermoso, and she's the most likely. They're a team that can get a lead and then hold it. I don't think they're a team that can fight back into a match if you give up early goals. And they're going to try to avoid that through early possession and maybe in some ways taking the air out of the game a bit. How does the United States respond? For me, that's the biggest question when you look at how Jill Ellis has prepared this team today. How do they start the match? Do they try to increase the pace early? Do they dictate the pace? Do they get that possession and not give it away and make Spain come chase them? Or do they decide to sit back and press? Do they let Spain try to dictate the tempo and then disrupt it? I'll be really curious to see how Jill Ellis approaches this today.
Yeah, and for me, I want to know, getting back to the MO of having the closed door practice. Was that just something as you're getting closer toward the last match in a tournament, you're kind of tightening things up a little bit? Were you working on wrinkles? That kind of stuff. Obviously, it's the natural curiosity in me. When you close doors, you're like, okay, so what's going on there? Is it hiding information? Is it hiding knocks? Is it tweaks? Is it working on other things? That for me is that behind closed doors stuff going to come out and when we watch the 90 minutes for coming up at noon Eastern.
Yeah, I mean, it could be nothing. It could be something. It could have been a concern. You could have been working on set pieces. It does grab your attention when it happens and when it hasn't been the norm. It raises your eyebrow a little bit. So we will see if anything different plays out here. And it could have had to do with some of that pressing style, if you want to go to that, which we haven't seen as much of. Real quick before we get back into the Twitters and more thoughts about Women's World Cup, MLS has announced the full 26-man roster for the All-Star Game. All-Star Game is on July 31st. This is really early to go ahead and announce the whole thing, but okay. It's some surprises. Joseph Martinez is in the full All-Star team roster, which is not a surprise. Miles Robinson not being part of the full roster is a surprise, in my opinion. You look at the center backs that are there. James O'Connor selected Matt Hedges. Leandro Gonzalez-Perez was a fan 11. Bastian Schweinsteiger was selected by James O'Connor. Walker Zimmerman was fan 11. Those are your four center backs that are on this roster. Schweinsteiger should not be there on merit ahead of Miles Robinson.
No.
Just should not be. Matt Hedges, okay. I think Robinson's having a better year. Schweinsteiger should not be in a manager's selection here instead of Miles Robinson. I think that's a little ridiculous. Commissioner selections, because Don Garber does add a couple of players at his discretion. He added Paxton Pomacall to the lineup in the midfield and did not add Miles Robinson. He also added Nick Raimondo in his final season. That is 100% completely appropriate. I like those types of selections for players who have had that type of career in this league. I think if Chad Marshall had announced his retirement to be at the end of the season, if he would have been able to go, he would have been a commissioner's selection as well. And I would like to see MLS do something to honor him and his career at the All-Star Game, even though he's not going to participate. But on the field, in terms of merit, Miles Robinson should be in this team. There's just no question about it.
Yeah, and there's always that thought of, okay, well, you want to put somebody in who you taking off? For me, it's a no-brainer. Schweinsteiger.
You're taking off Hedges or Schweinsteiger, either one. I mean,
well, for me, it's Schweinsteiger over Hedges. Yeah.
I would take either one. Miles Robinson should not even be down to the last spot. Miles Robinson should have been the first coach's selection when you look at Zimmerman and LGP getting the nod as the fan vote. And that's not bad at all. Walker Zimmerman's been great this season. LGP's been great this season. Robinson has been right there with them. He should have been the next selection. So it is what it is. You're going to see some players pull out. You're going to see injuries happen. It's over a month away. You're going to see changes. Maybe Miles Robinson finds his way into this match. It's an all-star game, so ultimately, how big of a deal is it? Not that much.
Don't get injured.
It's a nice bit of recognition. You can get injured walking down the street. I mean, that, to me, because of what happened to Greg Garza, I think Atlanta fans are incredibly sensitive about that. But
no question.
It's the way the league is structured. You have this game. I've said it a million times. I'd rather have a fun East versus West game that I think would do more for the league now than playing Atletico Madrid. It's a great club, a huge club. Does it really move the needle in this match? I don't think so.
I was going to say, how much there is there with an Atletico Madrid?
There, but this league is further along. Atletico Madrid is a great, great club.
Not denying.
Major League Soccer, my point is the only clubs that you should be playing in a game like this that would mean anything are Real Madrid, Barcelona, Liverpool, Manchester United, Chelsea, Arsenal, maybe Bayern. And I'm not even 100% that would move the needle and would make as big of a difference at this point. And if that's the case, just play East versus West. Just stop with this nonsense of a semi-competitive game and putting players into that situation with no real training, not giving them a true opportunity to actually compete. They are an all-star team that has never played together, going up against a team that, yes, is in preseason, but has played together. It's not set up to be truly competitive, but you're comparing it competitively because of the situation. Play East versus West and stop the nonsense.
I like that idea. Daniel Price has a lot of thoughts this morning by his own admission.
Good.
And back to women's soccer, he says the Australia match was the match of the tournament to me. France, I still have questions about. Same with England. I thought England was lacking offensively. Norway looks dangerous. Brazil, I think, got unlucky. Fun weekend for the game.
I think England was out of their heads a little bit because of everything going on in that match. I've seen a lot of criticism of England and how they played in this match. I think it's a little unfair. I mean, when you have a fourth-minute potential red card for an elbow to the face, which could have easily been sent to VAR and could have been called. You have a spitting incident that could have been intentional, could have been unintentional. I think it's, looking at the context, it's a bit of a leap of faith to say that there was no intent there. That was not ruled upon. You had a weird back pass situation. You get the opening goal. And I do believe it was a back pass. I don't think there's really a whole lot of criticism there.
Yeah, I do too.
You have the VAR situation with the second goal, which was completely onside. There's nothing to complain about once that video is shown and once you see that footage. And then you have the whole thing about, are they going to come back on the field? Are they going to play? You don't know what was said at that point between the Cameroon players and the England players. You have the just demonstrations as you're leaving the field for the halftime break and as you're coming back. You have things that are said in the tunnel, it sounds like. You have all kinds of stuff going on. I think England struggled to keep their focus, and I think it affected their performance 100%. Anybody who is in my opinion, coming at England for anything that happened in this match is completely unfair. There's nothing that they did wrong at all. England just played the match, and I think they struggled with the emotions of it, watching what was going on. I do think it affected them. They're going to have to be better against Norway, 100%. Norway is a very good, complete team, and it's been great to see with the questions about Norway, with Ada Hegerberg and her decision not to play as a distraction to a great team. And how many times do you see it when a great player is not available, whether it's due to injury or for whatever reason, and the team comes together maybe better than they would have if that great player was there, and we'll never know. But this feels like a very balanced performance from Norway, and they will test England. I think England's the better team, and I think England did not have to physically expend as much energy yesterday as Norway did in their win over Australia. But I think England had a lot of emotional energy that they had to use up in that. And how are they going to bounce back and push that to the side and just take care of the business in front of them against Norway? We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, just real quick, going back to what Phil Neville said yesterday. It's not worldwide. I can't stand here and say that I particularly enjoyed it or my players enjoyed it. At halftime, they were confused about what was going on, what they should do, but they kept their concentration brilliantly.
There's two things from what Phil Neville said that I think were lost in the shuffle of the yelling about his commentary about essentially the role models and girls watching worldwide, and a lot of people were rubbed the wrong way by that. I don't think that was the overriding point. I think the fact that he made these statements immediately after he watched his captain demolished on the touchline and nobody seemed to care, and the player was being screamed at by the opposing captain and the opposing manager just stepped over the player. That's going to have an effect on your state of mind. Absolutely. You're going to be fired up. She was on the training table, was unable to speak to the media after the match. There's concern about her availability for the quarterfinal. That was a horrendous challenge, and that factored into it. I'm sure that colored Phil Neville's opinions of everything after that just happened in stoppage time. And two, what he said right there about the mental state of the England team at halftime. I mean, you're completely thrown off by an opponent like that, and it's hard to bounce back and play your normal game, and I think England struggled to do that. They took care of business. They got the third goal fairly early in the second half. That was what they needed to really put the game away, but difficult situation all the way around. And I hope it's something that we don't see again. I hope it's something that doesn't happen because of all the various reasons that we've talked about. I hope Cameroon can get a competent soccer federation. This is not a gender thing. This is an incompetence thing that's been going on for decades and decades and decades. You had the Cameroon team in 2014. There was talk about them not taking the field in a World Cup match. That happened. This is not new. 1994 they had issues about getting paid. It's nothing new. So Cameroon needs a competent federation. Their players need to be supported better. They don't need to go years without playing a match. All of those things affect how you deal with the pressure of a World Cup round of 16 match where you absolutely want to be that role model and that inspiration for the next generation coming through, and you're not being prepared to do so by the people that are in charge of your federation. That affects you, and it affects why Cameroon acted the way they did. It shouldn't excuse it. And the blame is not just on the players, but it does have an effect on all of it. And that's why it's such a more complicated thing than firing off an angry thing about Phil Neville saying what he said or the English media saying what they said. There's a lot of things that factor into this, a whole lot. And the players do take some of the blame. The federation takes the blame. I think the manager takes some of the blame. The whole situation with the women's game in Africa and not being professional and not having these professional opportunities, that takes some of the blame. It's a very complicated situation all the way around. I think it will continue to change over time. It needs to change faster. It needs to change faster. And if FIFA needs to get involved here, and they've done it on different levels of providing funding, and go ask Trinidad and Tobago about where that funding ends up going sometimes. If they can come up with the way to do it and they actually provide funding to grow the women's game and grow the women's professional game in Africa, in other parts of the world where it's needed, they need to do so. They have the money to do it, and they need to do it in a responsible way so we don't have these situations and players have a better chance to compete and we get a better World Cup as a result. It's going to take time. It can take less time if FIFA gets involved here. But it needs to change because the players yesterday for Cameroon, they didn't want to break down when these things happened to them. They didn't want to have that affect their game. It did. It did, and it came out in a variety of ways. And one of them could go on to affect England in the quarterfinal because of an awful challenge at the end of that match that had no place in any game. And that's being swept under the rug. It's difficult all the way around, and I hope that that doesn't overshadow what's been an amazing tournament. And I think we'll find an even new level of amazing as we go on.
Seconded, agreed to, and raising my hand in agreement with you, comma, sir, exclamation point. I'm down with all of that.
It's just I fear that it's going to be a major talking point for the rest of the tournament, and it should not be.
No.
It was a meltdown that has a lot of reasons for it, and it was a shame because Cameroon has given you, in my opinion, the goal of the tournament by in-shout that got them to the round of 16. They were always going to be an underdog in this situation because of getting in on Thursday, having to turn around and play on Sunday and play a team like England as good as they are. Everything else around it is going to overshadow that accomplishment, and it shouldn't.
And we have a match in 55 minutes that we can focus on and get everything rolling here for the week.
Yes. Do we have any final tweets we need to hit on an Overreaction Monday?
A couple of folks, True Blue Images and Tafka, enjoyed hearing Jessica talking soccer.
It's always good to hear Jessica talking soccer.
They let's see, Blue C ATLian. Love hearing her talk soccer, same as I do Zakawani and Arlo accents, along with voice, tone, inflection, and immense soccer knowledge is like music to my ears. I could listen all day.
I don't have that nice of an accent, but Jess does. And far more important than the accent is that she has a great perspective on the game and expresses it really, really well. It was great to hear her on the Peachtree City MOBA match, and won't be the last time you hear Jess, that's for sure.
Do we have a soccer over? We're having a SOT tonight, right?
Yes. Time to be determined because there will be some World Cup date going on as well. It will be determined based on how long the Sweden-Canada match goes on this afternoon. If that goes into stoppage or goes into extra time and penalties, the soccer over there might be pushed back to a 7 o'clock start. But the tentative plan is a 6:30 start.
All right. So that's your programming plan for today, live after dinner or during dinner, depending on when you have dinner, and 2 matches today to watch on your favorite network of choice. And I need to go back into the timeline to see how many people are still venting their spleens and talking about Rafa Benitez leaving Newcastle. And Gary Monk is the favorite for that.
Who is he, by the way? I'm not
Gary
up on
Monk.
Gary Monk Wikipedia page.
Gary Monk had a disagreement with basically the general manager of Birmingham City and was let go last week. So he was in the championship, had a cup of coffee with Swansea City, and wasn't given a whole lot of time to do anything there as well. So Swansea, Leeds, Middlesbrough, Birmingham, and dismissed last week from Birmingham. So oddsmakers now have him as number 1 in the clubhouse to take over at Newcastle. And also oddsmakers are saying that Newcastle is among those that will be relegated this season in the Prem.
Yeah, that's an easy call right now from the oddsmakers. So let's hit a little bit of thunder and lightning.
Uh-oh.
I think the storm element of this is appropriate. Chris Furmeister from Pro Soccer USA tweeted out a couple of minutes ago, Ezequiel Barco out injured for the Toronto match, suffered a knee injury in the win over Columbus. Similar to Tito's is from Chris's tweet. Hopefully not as similar of a time frame. Frank de Boer also went on to say that Brandon Vasquez will start at center forward against Toronto on Wednesday.
So that's not good news from Mr. Furmeister. Hope it's just not a long
and you
thing.
wonder what the lineup could look like. Andrew Carlton has played well in back-to-back Open Cup matches. He came off the bench in Columbus to see that one out. He started the match against Charleston. He could be the replacement and play in the middle with Pity Martinez off to the right and Julian Gressel maybe off to the left, or maybe you move Pity back to the middle and you bring Gressel in on the right. Lots of different possibilities. Justin Merrim also playing well as of late. So lots of different possibilities for the lineup on Wednesday as Atlanta United gets back into league play. And it gets really, really crowded when you start to look ahead. 9 games over the next month from June 26th to July 26th. Atlanta's not the only team going through that. Pretty much everybody in the league will be. So you're going to see a lot of MLS matches over the next month, and you're going to see a lot of teams start to talk about rotation and injury and dealing with just fitness issues. It's going to be very, very difficult around the league. I think you're going to see a lot of chaos around the league. A lot of results that on paper don't really make sense when you compare what a team's done all year to another. I wonder how much of that's going to affect Atlanta United. And that's what we'll have to see. I think Atlanta's as prepared as anybody for it with their depth, but it's going to be a true gauntlet challenge to get through it.
Yeah, that's the word you used. It's 9 matches in a month's time, yeah?
Yeah, 9 matches from June 26th to July 26th.
So this is one of those times in the schedule where it was determined that the depth that you were bringing in and the fact that you have guys on the USL Championship level can help out in these situations and get you through this to get you where you want to be. And so this 9-match stretch of schedule compression plus Open Cup and trying to get the goal that you've established there, getting through the end of it and breaking the tape, that's why you have what you have here now, and that's why you've built it the way you have.
All right, so rest of the day, United States and Spain will be kicking off, I guess, a little bit closer to noon. The times for some of these matches have gotten a little weird over in France, so kickoff will be upcoming in the next hour. You can watch that on FS1, not on regular Fox. It's on FS1. It's also on the Fox Sports app. Then you get Canada and Sweden at around 3 o'clock. We'll be back with a World Cup date after the final whistle of that one. And then we'll also have soccer over there following all of it, closer to 6:30 or 7 o'clock start time. We'll get into Rafa Benitez. We'll get into the summer transfer window. Napoli, I think, had an intern tweeting on their English language account who was making statements about reports in the media and talking about silly season. Hopefully the phone was yanked away quickly. All kinds of stuff around the world. We'll also talk Copa America and Gold Cup and Martinique giving Mexico a bit of a scare last night, although Mexico was already through. We'll talk about all the craziness all the rest of the day here on the SDH app and soccerdownhere.net and on Spreaker. And also, make sure you go visit soccerdownhere.net later this afternoon. Part 2 of Tafka's Opus will be posted, and we'll be talking about that in the Tuesday Thoughts show tomorrow morning. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Thanks for all the thoughts chiming in today. We'll be back later in the day with all kinds of stuff coming your way. Appreciate it. Mucho platio.
Mucho platio.